This is Top Landing Gear. Hello and welcome to Top Landing Gear, Series 3, or Season 3 as they tend to say these days. Now this series is based around our hugely enjoyable trip to Lincolnshire, Bomber County last autumn, where we visited the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight and Operational Typhoon Squadrons at RAF Coningsby, took the Dambusters tour at RAF Scampton, went gliding, flew microlights, and had a memorable night in the Squadron bar at the Petwood Hotel, which at one time had been the mess for 617 Squadron, the Dambusters. And we're going to open with a podcast all about the Lancaster, which celebrates its 80th anniversary this year, and one Lancaster in particular, Just Jane, which is being restored to flight at the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre at East Kirkby. And our special guest is the man behind this ambitious project, Andrew Panton. But before any of that, let's just remind you who we are, because it's been quite a while since we could be bothered to record one of these car crashes. There are four of us, led by a bit of a Guy Gibson lookalike, I think.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll take that. Who are we talking about?
Yeah, no, we are talking about the pop superstar, frontman with Scouting for Girls, and progressing very nicely with his microlight licence. It's Roy Stride.
Hello.
Love to talk to you about the microlight.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to
And
be
the
flying
back.
today, but the wind put pay to that. I am just about to go into the circuit, so I'll be landing on my own. God,
What, solo?
not solo, not yet. But that I think that will be within a month. The way we're going, probably.
This could be on the last podcast we did with all four of us.
Who's going to
I'm not being
edit?
funny. If I go,
Yeah,
nobody
you're right.
else knows.
We were
No,
really
that's-
going to record this on tape.
Yeah, it's not going to work, is it?
Just sending them
well,
out.
just be careful, Roy. For goodness sake. And as well as Roy, yet to qualify, we do have a fully qualified professional pilot. I can't help laughing when I say that, because he has pranged almost everything he's been at the controls of.
That is a lie. That's a lie.
Well,
2 or 3 things.
2 or 3 things. On one occasion, you didn't even leave the ground, although you were trying to.
We did leave the ground momentarily.
It is James Cartner.
Hi.
And we're very proud of James and all he's achieved. Now, on a slightly serious note, last month we lost the Duke of Edinburgh, his passing marked with a fittingly impressive and moving funeral. However, during it, I was constantly bombarded by texts from my brother asking if we'd noticed the exceptional quality of the fencing in Windsor Great Park, which he, of course, as fencer to the Crown Estate, had done himself. I have to say I hadn't noticed.
Well,
But,
I'll rewind the recording and send it to you.
well, that'd be very kind.
With the,
Thank you.
With the timestamp on it.
Okay, well, here he is, our queen of fencers, Jez Curling.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back. And finally, with little claim to anything other than being Jez's brother and the host of this podcast, it's me, Rob Curling.
I must say, I was a little disappointed. I expected to see your name amongst those nominated for BAFTAs for your appearance in The Crown. I mean, at least 2 or 3 others of your compatriots got them. Where were you?
Did they? Maybe next year.
It could
Maybe
be next year.
Never. Yeah. Well, thanks.
No,
Simon.
mate, I'm hoping you're going to reprise your role for Series 5.
Season 5.
Oh, Season 5, yeah.
Get with it.
Oh, we've all
so
got a bit
sorry,
Netflix, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
Now, listen, we've got all our usual features coming up later on with Andrew Panton, of course, his interview about Just Jane's restoration. We'll have Jez's quick facts, which may be neither quick nor factual, all about the Lancaster, and, of course, the highlight of every Top Landing Gear podcast, which is the quiz. Which, like wartime Lancaster's bombs every time it hits you. Now, just let's catch up what we've all been up to. Roy flying sounds exciting, but I think quite a lot of work with the band too.
Yeah, we released an album last week, or recently by the time this gets out, and which has done very well, which you can do it. And we are touring in October and November, so I've been doing I feel like, oh God, I just feel like I did a week's worth of interviews where people asked me about the music. So it's quite nice to talk about flying. which I'm enjoying. The microlighting is so good to. The first day we were allowed. I had a lesson that morning. I was up.
You did the loop.
I did
In a
loop the loop,
microlight?
not in a microlight. No, you can't do that. You can't do a bank angle of more than 60 degrees in the
he knows his stuff,
C42.
doesn't he?
But
Eh?
He's
learned the books.
My wonderful flying club, which is Sport Air, based down in Goodwood, have an Eagle, which I got taken out
It
in.
looks a bit like a pit special, doesn't
Yes,
it?
yes, it's biplane but at full cover. It's lethal. It's ridiculous. I got taken out by Jack, who's my instructor, who's
Who's it taken
also
out? You can take it out.
he's also an aerobatic instructor, and when you take off in the C42, it's a very, very gentle takeoff, which takes a long time, and it's all very lovely. Jack took us off, and I think we were up at about 3,000 foot within a couple of minutes. It literally just went vertical.
Yeah.
I have to, I didn't really want to admit this, but I did have to say, Jack, can we go home now? It was on the fourth loop. So the fourth, we'd done lots of stuff. And then I did the loop, and wasn't feeling great that morning anyway.
Oh.
And so.
Blame the food poisoning. Always blame the food
Yeah, it
poisoning.
was definitely the food
Were you
poisoning.
actually sick?
No, I wasn't sick. They'd have been very cross with me if I was sick.
Had you eaten beforehand? Because that's one lesson I learnt early on, is that you must eat as greasy a meal as you can before you go flying.
I hadn't eaten anything, and because I'd actually almost forgotten that I had
schoolboy, Reg.
I had a lesson, and so I was racing to get my lesson, and I was so happy with the lesson. I'd absolutely aced the lesson. It's yeah, we're going to go into the circuit next, and then Richard, who runs the flying club, ex-747 pilot, and it's an amazing club. They've got some brilliant planes like the Piper, which I keep sending you pictures of.
Yeah,
we're going to feature them. They've got some beautiful planes. And Richard was like, Roy, why don't you take up the Eagle? And I was like, okay, because after lockdown, I just say yes to everything.
That's got to take the opportunity.
So, but I would have had something to eat. I was going to do that. So I am really looking forward to going back and doing it again, because it is. Because it was amazing to fly another plane.
Yeah.
Having only flown the C-42, and
did it feel totally different?
There's real power in those things, and they're quite twitchy, aren't they?
yeah,
I mean, the response to the in roll particularly is just ridiculous.
yeah. When we did the 4-point roll, is that what it's called, that, and it's so much fun. But it felt amazing to be able to do it. Like I thought, well, actually, when I'm not sure, I might have to edit this bit out. But I was in the front seat, he was in the back seat, and I just thought, if he passed out or something, I said, Jack, what speed do I need to come in at to land it?
Oh.
And he said, if you look at the dial, because all the dials are in the front, there's none in the back where the main pilot is. If you look at the dial, there's a big Sharpie marker pen marked at the speed you have to come in. He goes, see,
That's why there's all those lines at work.
and I don't think it would be the greatest landing in the world, but I felt kind of confident that.
That's so cool,
you
mate.
landed it.
No,
The Eagle
no,
landed.
I didn't. No, I didn't. No. But I kind of thought, if the worst came to the worst,
You could get it down.
See, I think that's actually quite a big step in your aviation career. Is that if he pegs it in the back now and in the other seat now, could I bring this down to something that would
not
approximate a landing that maybe we could walk away from? And I think it's an amazing feel, because you do suddenly feel, actually, if the worst came to the worst, I could do this, and that is your route to solo then, because you're there now.
Yeah, because that happened to me in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Suddenly everything, because a lot of time when you're learning, you're just like, can you go up to 2,000 foot? Oh, can you now go down to 1,000 foot? You're like, oh God, this is no, I'm not everything is boring, but I'm thinking, what is the point of just going up and down and doing? Can you just stay on a straight line? And then suddenly, I had this moment where everything made sense to me a couple of weeks ago. So
That's it. That must be great. It is that click. You suddenly it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're doing pedals as well?
Yeah.
So you're doing everything? You're not just...
Yeah.
It's got an engine.
Yeah.
There's no answer to that, is there?
Yeah, Yeah, I'm loving it. So,
That's
just
brilliant.
on that dial thing with
Yeah.
the mark, Amanda Harrison, who I interviewed, who started to retrace Amy Johnson's flight in the Tiger Moth, she told me something which I'd never realised. Looking in the cockpits of lots of sort of older aircraft, I always think people have put the dials in very carelessly or at a funny angle. You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
They're all lined up when it's in the green, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
so all the needles are pointing in the same direction when everything's where it should be.
yes.
So if it were a clock, for example,
Right.
12 wouldn't necessarily be at the top. It could be over in the 10 o'clock position. But when the needle's where it should be, all the needles on
So it's
all
easy to
Exactly.
pick out something that's
You
wrong.
can pick out something that's wrong very quickly.
How
That's a great.
fascinating.
Yeah.
That was a great
Good
interview.
spot.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my favourite interviews on the on the
Series
first-
one?
It was Series 1, yeah.
Yeah,
it was
that
brilliant.
was
well
back in
worth
October
checking out,
2019. I did that interview. Well, she's incredible, Amanda. And I'm still in touch with her and
Any
still
news about
hoping.
going again?
Not yet, and it's obviously because of lockdown. It's been incredibly difficult. I think the aircraft, the Tiger, was having quite a bit of a repair job done. We'll have to catch up with her again properly and see what her plans are.
I think basically we could go around all our guests again.
Yeah, it'd be
There's
great,
enough
wouldn't it?
material without having to do anything new.
Yeah. And Jim, what about you? Has there been much flying in the airline business?
The airline business has been quiet. I think I've flown on average about once a month since December, and it has been mostly freight. One leg was passengers, but yes, nearly all freight,
This is long haul.
long haul freight. So taking aircraft, it's either taking stuff, exporting it, or bringing back things like PPE or food or anything from around the world.
Any stuff going out to India? I know a lot of stuff is going to India. isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Because
we are. I think all airlines are taking stuff. We've been taking ventilators and medical supplies out to India. So hopefully that'll help. But
So
there's
to
a lot
keep
to
you
do.
current,
Yeah.
are you still doing lots of sims?
So we have to do the rules are that we have to fly 3 takeoffs and landings within 90 days and 1 within 35 days. So if your normal flying doesn't give you that, then you have to go to the simulator.
Okay.
And about every 2 months, I think most people are going to the simulator just to keep their currency up.
How long will that last on a simulator before? Is that going to be fine, or is it going to get to a point where people are like,
No, I mean
Well-
the simulators these days are considered so realistic
Yeah.
that you could basically keep your license up in perpetuity.
Hello.
We know how easy sims are, don't we? Because we've done the Typhoon.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the big
so
deal
a
is.
sim
really.
flight counts as a flight? So when you're saying you've got to do a landing every
For
35
currency, yes, it does. Yes,
okay.
yeah, it does. So you could just keep it current in the sim. There is no
Does
requirement.
that count
to do it in
towards
the
your
aircraft.
hours?
You mark your simulator's hours in a different column to your flying hours. Some people add them together if they're desperate for hours. I tend not to because I'm a bit
But it's
embarrassed.
legit to count it, is it?
I think you should count it separately
Separate,
as simulator hours.
Because I mean, this was something we talked about many months ago, actually, wasn't it? The amount of training now
Yeah.
that is conducted on the simulator, and
Well, I
less
think
and less in
when we talk about our
an aircraft.
the Typhoon flying, there are going to be no twin-seater Typhoons very shortly.
Yeah.
So the first time those guys strap themselves into a Typhoon, they're on their own.
Yeah.
And we talk about episode 3. It's
Yeah.
all about the Typhoon.
So,
Is it?
When we went to, we were there, Rob.
Yeah, no, I thought Dan Busters was going
Oh no, Dan Busters is episode 3. Yeah,
just checking.
Yeah, that's right. Keep on to- Episode 4 is all about the Typhoon, and Nick, who showed us around, said exactly that. Yeah.
Do you remember, Nick?
Yeah. Very well, yeah.
we went to Lincoln.
Oh, was it?
I do remember it well. Jim, a couple of things in the news recently. A very unfortunate accident with the Royal Navy historic flight Sea Fury.
Yeah, Navy Wings, Sea Fury.
Navy Wings.
Yeah, they were. From what I understand, they were out doing, I think it was pilot training, some aerobatics, etc. They reported an engine problem to air traffic and were heading back to Yeovilton, and they didn't make it. They did what they call a precautionary forced landing, which ended up in a bit more of than a
It
precautionary.
was upside down.
It was upside down. Now, looking at the damage,
Pilot's okay.
the pilot's okay. I think they were both in a hospital.
Yeah.
One was released very
Precautionary,
quickly, one overnight, but I think they're all fine. And it looks like the aircraft is repairable. It's not in a horrifically bad way. But
Really?
it's going to take.
I saw the engine was
Yes.
quite some distance from the upside down fuselage.
If you look at the main body, I mean, but I think the sad thing is because it's a charity, Navy Wings, and they've just raised £350,000 to get that aircraft back into
I'm a
the air.
supporter.
Yeah.
Good well done.
I started
Well
supporting when the Sea Vixen had its
Yeah.
belly landing.
done. But that particular aircraft had a gear malfunction in at Culdrose a couple of years ago.
The Sea Fury.
The Sea Fury, yeah. And so it's the same aircraft. It's sad to have this, but this is the unfortunate thing with historic aircraft. They're not as reliable as new aircraft, and it's very easy. You know, we always think of aviation now as so safe and everything's going to be fine, but yet with older aircraft, things happen.
Yeah.
And they weren't built to the tolerances for very good reason that aircraft are built to now. So these things go wrong, and somebody will take that on board and get it back in the air again, and the pilots are fine. So it's very unfortunate. I mean, no one likes to see that sort of aircraft on its back on a field.
I was preparing as well to take part in the first display of the year at Shuttleworth as well. So really sad, but thank God everyone's okay. And then there was a really interesting one which was caught on video in the States of an old World War II US Avenger.
Avenger, yes. Yeah, the one that landed in the sea.
Ditching right by the beach.
Yes. No, I'm not entirely sure. It seems like some sort of engine malfunction again.
Yeah.
Because that was a plan. It seemed a planned
That was superbly done.
landing. Very well done. But there is a bit of debate going online amongst the aviation community about whether what they did was the best idea or not. And they were in the sea, obviously, but quite close to the beach.
Very.
And if you look at where they landed, it was where
There's a few
everybody would be
bathers
swimming.
in
Yeah, I mean, the people were ducking to get out of the way.
Oh my God! Someone sent me this. I
Yes.
thought it was like a film.
No, this,
I didn't realise. Oh God!
and
Welcome to the real world, right, of aviation.
Wow.
I believe the debate is, had they gone maybe another few hundred yards further out to sea, it would have been harder to recover the aircraft. They may have been, have had further to swim, but they wouldn't necessarily have put all those bathers. And because I think there were a lot of bathers were out for the air show, they were watching what was going on.
Okay.
So it was quite a busy beach.
It stopped pretty quickly once it hit the water. But there are bathers
The people
a
in the
couple of
water.
hundred metres directly in front of where it stopped. They must have been swimming for their lives.
Yeah,
That is mad.
an interesting one.
Yeah.
But certainly worth looking at. If you've not seen it, have a look on.
Or if you've seen it and thought it was something from a film, and check it out.
Yeah, it's quite something.
It is quite something.
Good. Well, fantastic stuff. It's great to be back with everyone. Here we are actually sitting around a table back in Roy's wonderful studio again, which is just wonderful after all our Zoom efforts over the previous months. Jez,
Oh, yes.
I think it's time for some quick facts. Just a reminder to people listening, by the way, please do send in questions for James. I don't think we've got any backed up, have we?
Not really, no. I need to look through.
Get some questions
got
in
quite
for
a lot
Jim for
backed
future
up.
episodes. But let's get on then with our subject for this first podcast of season 3 proper, the wonderful Avro Lancaster. So let's find out the key essentials about this magnificent aircraft in double quick time. Here's hoping. With Jez's quick facts.
This only goes to 3 pages, but I might cut it down. Anyway, here we go. So, the 4-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bomber was designed and built by A.V. Rowan Company for the RAF during the Second World War, entering service with the RAF Bomber Command in 1942, and it soon became their main heavy bomber. The Lanc's origins are in the Avro Manchester, an underpowered twin-engined aircraft with 2 Rolls-Royce Vulture engines. The Lancaster's designer was, of course, the legendary Roy Chadwick, whose first incarnation of the Lanc was the prototype BT-308, which first flew on the 9th of January 1941, and it was described as being right from the start. The majority of the aircraft built during the war years were manufactured by Avro at their factory at Chadderton, near Oldham in Lancashire, and they were then assembled and test flown from, obviously famously, Woodford Aerodrome in Cheshire. Now, the bomb bay of the Lancaster was so long that it meant it could take even the largest bombs used by the RAF. And, of course, its versatility was such that it was chosen to equip 617 Squadron to drop the bouncing bomb used during Operation Chastise, which was, of course, the Dam Busters raid. The Lancaster was primarily a night bomber. It excelled in many other roles, including daylight and precision bombing raids. and of course in its latter role was adapted to carry the Tall Boy and ultimately the £22,000 Grand Slam earthquake bombs, which we actually saw at Scampton.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
They are vast.
Yeah. They are truly huge. 7,377 Lancasters were built in all marks and variations, and there are 16 survivors, of which two are still flying. Very quick facts: obviously, power plant, 4 Rolls-Royce engines, span 102 feet, length 69 feet 4 inches, maximum weight 68,000 pounds, 7 crew, generally speaking, and one of those 16 survivors I mentioned is, of course, stationed at East Kirkby Airfield in Lincolnshire, where we found Just Jane, NX611. And we will be talking about that in some detail later. So that's some basic quick facts on the Lanc.
Very good, Jez.
Marvellous.
Yeah,
Very
it is.
quick, nice and quick.
Bomber Harris actually said that the Lancaster won the war for us, which is quite a statement.
Well, I think Bomber Harris said that he won the war for us.
Yeah.
Pretty much Bomber Harris
I think he
did believe himself to be.
Yeah.
But it was phenomenal in the destruction that it caused.
Yeah.
And it was, as Jez indicated, very adaptable.
Well, there was no doubting the effectiveness of the aircraft. What was more debatable was the effectiveness of the campaign, with the area bombing that Harris was.
I think it's very it's very important not to necessarily look at what the Lancaster did in relation to what we know now about war, but to look about what it did back then.
like everything, isn't it?
And it's very easy to sort of say, I think the average accuracy of a World War II bomb was something like 1.2 miles.
Yeah, well, I think something like 80%, and I'm plucking that figure slightly out of the air, but it's a massive majority of bombs. I think it was more than that. I think it didn't land within 5 miles of the target.
Wow.
But once they got the Pathfinders, the Mosquito Pathfinders, accuracy improved hugely.
Well, Lancasters also played that role, didn't they?
Yes.
Pathfinder role.
Yeah.
And how did that work, the Pathfinder role? I always find it rather strange that you send a load of aircraft to go and drop a flare, and then the bombers. Why don't you just drop a flare?
It lets people know you're coming a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know.
I've never really understood.
I've read it about it a lot, and I can't honestly say I'm that much more enlightened.
They dropped coloured flares.
Yeah.
So, and then what happened was, in Germany, they would start fires when the first raid started. The Germans would start fires in different areas to try and direct the bombers to drop their bombs in a place where the factories weren't. And so I think the Pathfinders were there to drop the green, or I think they were green flares, the ones. So.
But how were they able to be accurate?
Because they were faster.
Much faster,
isn't it?
and they weren't affected by wind as much. They operated at different altitudes, so they had a much better nav sort of setup, if you like.
Interesting.
And I think it was a Pathfinder raid that Guy Gibson was on when he was
shot
killed,
down,
wasn't he, in the Mosquito?
Interesting. I did meet a Lancaster bomb aimer a couple of years ago and asked him about the bomb aiming process. And he said, well, we had a little computer. I said, it's a manual computer. I said, well, what do you need that for? He said, well, to work out the trajectory of the bomb. And I just hadn't really fully appreciated that when you drop a bomb from an aircraft, it doesn't just fall straight down. It doesn't also just fall in a straight line towards the target. It's a curved line. How it falls depends on the speed, depends on depends on wind, and so many other things. So there's an awful lot to aiming a bomb and dropping.
Well, I know if you read my favourite book, Vulcan 607, in depth they talk about the forward throw of those 21 bombs down Port Stanley runway.
Yeah.
And that's why they flew it across rather than straight down, because if they'd got it obviously slightly to the left or the right, they would have missed it entirely. But the forward throw was, they released the bombs, I can't remember the exact, it's something like 8 miles from the, 8 miles from the target, and the forward throw is what it gets with the momentum of the bomb.
So they're not guided.
No guided,
nowadays I think of everything as being guided. I think the
even now they're not all bombs are guided.
No.
You still have dumb bombs, if you like, but it all depends what you're trying to achieve, and particularly in today's world, it's very important that that missiles hit the right target, because even when even in this Gulf War II, I think the Chinese embassy got a little bit of a knock on the door, which shouldn't have happened in Baghdad. So it's very important now. So that as much guidance as you can give, but even you can GPS guide them now with quite decent precision. You can TV guide them, so they're actually following
There's laser targeting.
There's
as well.
laser
It's kind of
targeting.
old hat
You've got-
now, I guess.
Yeah, you've either got someone on the ground to do laser targeting. You either need someone on the ground to target it, or you need a tiled pod on your own aircraft to laser target, and then the bomb follows that laser beam, or you need another aircraft to highlight the target.
Is this what the Buccaneers were doing?
So Buccaneers
With
was
the tornadoes
they
and
they
the
had was it paved spike or whatever to highlight the targets.
And when you talk about fire and forget, just explain what that.
So a fire and forget means that you can fire it and then you can depart the scene, and the missile will do itself. So that's either GPS guided, or there's some sort of an inertial navigation system guiding it, or there can be TV. Well, certainly 10, 20 years ago, you'd have a TV camera on the front of the missile, and somebody would fly that missile to its target.
What a waste of a camera.
Do you remember all those amazing briefings we used to get in the first Gulf War with old Storming Norman?
Yeah.
and I remember there was one. He said, "This is the luckiest guy in Iraq."
on the bike.
The guy,
on the
on the
bridge.
car. He was crossing a bridge, wasn't he? And one of these laser-guided missiles came in and blew the bridge up. And he stopped just in time, or he just got past it.
I think he just
He
got over the
got
bridge,
past
yeah.
it, hadn't he? And the bridge disintegrated behind him. But I mean, those cruise missiles. I know that they weren't launched from an aircraft, flying down high streets with the journalists. And it was just incredible.
But obviously nowadays you got drones, which can deploy munitions. So they're sitting there in an orbit 30,000 feet above the target area, Syria or Afghanistan recently, and that is then fired and guided on. And there are two people sitting side by side each other in a porter cabin in Wellington or in Las Vegas.
It's amazing.
Flying that missile onto its target.
I think what I got from when we went to the Lincolnshire Aviation Museum, we went into the Lancaster, and you just see the complete opposite of that. You've got a plane there where you require 7 crew to do this bombing raid, and it's you see it's half of the way you fly the plane is still manual. It's still very
Bicycle
few-
chains and ropes. Yeah,
It's astonishing.
yeah.
What
And a cast iron lump of bomb.
Yeah,
Which
what
you
the
just
Lancaster
drop and
did.
hope for the best. Yeah.
80 years
Another
ago.
thing that was amazing as well, which was from Chadwick designed the Lancaster and the Vulcan.
Yes. 15 years later.
15 years apart.
That's extraordinary.
Now I know the Vulcan in today's parlance isn't particularly modern, but the difference between those two aircraft and 15 years is just unbelievable. One is space age, effectively,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the other is
And look which one's
it's
still flying there.
the easier one to maintain.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. I
true.
think Andrew Panton, we referred to that actually in an interview we did with Andrew's excellent guest that he was. But yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, for all the death and destruction it caused, it will forever be part of our history and culture, and we love it for all the right reasons, I hope, as well as being acknowledging the things that it did that maybe weren't so.
I mean, Bomber Command was, by Churchill and others, slightly shunned.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't it? And there was a
Particularly just after the war, I think they were.
It took a long time.
Well, I think the
decades.
Bomber Command Memorial was
That's
pretty
recent,
recent,
isn't
isn't it? And the International Bomber Command Centre at Lincoln.
Yeah.
Which
I wonder if the Lancaster would have had the sort of place it does in our hearts without the Dambusters raid and the Dambusters film,
Yeah.
because they have obviously done an awful lot of, if you like, good PR for the Lanc.
Well, I think you're right, because we all know Mosquito and Hurricane. A lot of us from the films, and we all know the Spitfire and Hurricane from the films, and we also know Mosquito from 623 Squadron, and we know Lancaster from Dambusters, but we don't talk about Halifaxes or
Yeah.
Wellingtons, for example,
Wellingtons or Bowfighters or the dozens and dozens and dozens of other types.
You're absolutely
because
right.
they weren't part of the popular
culture.
culture, of aircraft. Although they played just as important roles.
But it is a beautiful thing to look at as
It's
well.
beautiful, and it's the sound, isn't it?
Yeah, like all those, those 4 ones we're talking, like Mosquito,
Yeah.
Spitfire, Hurricane,
Yeah.
Lanc. They are things of beauty.
You see, I don't think the Lancaster is.
It's not
Intimately
naturally beautiful, is it?
Yeah,
Yes, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful because it's so functional.
yeah.
And everything on that is a functional, and it's built like a cathedral almost.
Yeah, and you can't look
Lincoln
at it.
Cathedral.
You can't look at it without thinking of everything that goes with
Yeah.
it. You know?
Yes.
You just can't.
No,
you
I think
know.
that's very much the point.
It evokes so many things. The minute you see it or hear it or talk about it, and we've all got in front of us, we've got pictures of or on the screen or in a
Yeah,
book or whatever of a Lancaster as we're doing this, and you can't look at it without.
No.
It bringing in not
it-
not memories for us, but
me-
evoking stuff that
Yeah.
you
For
just
me-
can't. It's intangible.
Which I always feel whenever I'm near it or see it is you think the average age of the crew member was 22, and you had it was a 45% chance of you coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was you had a higher. You were more likely to die in a Lancaster than you were as an officer in the trenches in the Somme.
I actually wrote down and then failed to mention because I haven't actually brought the figures with me. The bomber command, not just in Lancaster, obviously the bomber command fatalities. I know we're all sort of familiar with, but I mean they are horrific.
Yes.
And
I think-
beautifully illustrated actually at East Kirkby
Yeah.
in that sort of memorial to them.
Well, in the interview, Andrew Panton talked about how it, that has a specific memorial to his ancestors, but it's a memorial to everybody from Bomber Command who stepped on an aircraft in the UK and didn't get off it.
Yeah.
That is absolutely.
Just going back to what the Lancaster evokes, and the first thing you probably think about when you think about the Lancaster, if you're actually sort of in its physical presence, even if you're on the ground, is the sound, because you hear it coming, and then you see it, and then you hear it going away, and that's the 3 things you get. We now have been incredibly lucky, and Roy and I now twice, and you as well, Jim, actually, obviously, to have also felt it and smelt it, and that is another sort of sensory overload. It's an utter privilege, wasn't it? But that's just another way of sort of imbuing yourself into this amazing aircraft. Not just the sight of it, not just the sound of it, now the smell of it and the feel of it. It's incredible.
But it's terribly easy to, as we have been really, to sort of over-romanticize
Yeah, it is,
isn't it?
yeah.
When you think of, actually, we talk about the Lancaster and what it stood for. It stood for immense destruction. It caused immense destruction during the war.
Yes,
I mean, that's what it was designed
I
for.
think
That's what it was designed
our
to do.
generation are probably really guilty of doing exactly that and being overly what's the word I'm looking for? You'll have to cut this.
Sentimental.
Thank you. Our generation have been, I think, are guilty of being overly sentimental about it, and I definitely am. I know.
I
think it
wouldn't
would be
worry
very-
because I think there's a new generation coming up who
Yeah,
are going to definitely have a problem.
I don't think it'll be.
yeah. You may be right. Yeah. Maybe I should stick to it. Not worry.
Oh, well, listen. We've talked a lot about Andrew Panton, who's behind this amazing operation up at East Kirkby with Just Jane, the Lancaster there. So let's hear from him, the man behind everything that's going on at Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre. It's not just the Lancaster there, Just Jane, and their mammoth task of returning it to flight. You'll be able to hear his full interview with some of the things that we've been talking about just now in our full Flaps edition, which will drop a week after this podcast first drop. So depending on when you're listening to this, it may already be there, ready and waiting for you to press play. But a couple of years ago, I think Roy and Jez may have mentioned this just now, they went on a VIP trip to East Kirkby, which is something anyone can sign up for, by the way. And in this excerpt, Roy gets Andrew to explain just what experiences are on offer at East Kirkby.
Andrew, tell us what we're here because for Greg's 40th birthday, the bass player of our band, we came here for a whole day, for a VIP day experience. So tell people what you offer, because when Jez even walked in, he said this is one of the best days of my life. And same here, same for me. It was one of the best. It's an incredible experience. So tell people what they.
Well, our view, when the museum was originally set up, or when the Lancaster originally came here, the plan was just to have it in the hangar so we can go and have a look at it when we want. And it was really said, well, you can't do that. You can't deprive the nation of such a prized asset. So that's how the museum was set up, really, letting people come in and have a look and building a collection from there. Our view really is that Bomber Command was made up from people of all different walks of life, all different nationalities, all from the Commonwealth, different colours, creeds, religions, everything. And so what we want is the aircraft to be available to everybody still. It doesn't want to just be locked away. It doesn't want to be only the elite or the wealthy can actually be involved with the aircraft. So anybody who walks off the street can just either pay the admission fee just to come and look at it. They can have a tour on board for a little bit more, or they can pay a little bit more and they can have a taxi ride on board the aircraft. There's an awful lot of people that have been affected by Lancasters and Bomber Command and want to get back involved somehow. They might have had a family member who was a crew member, and they want to kind of experience a little bit about what their family member went through. So we enable people to have a taxi ride on board the aircraft. So they can go on board, they can take one of the crew positions, start the engines up, taxi around the airfield. We do a quicker run where we take all 4 engines up to 2,000 RPM, release the brakes, and we get up to probably about 30 miles an hour or something up to that region.
The tail wheel come off the ground?
We don't do tail up. We can do. You can officially do the tail up without it flying. So we could do that, but our strip is slightly shorter than you'd really desire for that sort of the speed. But but they can get on board. They obviously get the smells, the atmosphere, the feeling, the noise of the
smell
engines.
is a huge part of it, isn't it?
I did the flight engineer's seat, and actually we were with a group of some families when we came who did have some relatives, and they got first pick, quite rightly, because they wanted to maybe go where their own relatives would be. I think you took
I was the bomb aimer.
I took engineer, which is actually what I would have chosen, because I thought I would have next to the pilot. It was unbelievable. And I still quite regularly watch the videos I took. It was incredible.
What sense did you get? What was
Power. Quite emotional again. Funny a theme here with me.
Yes.
Pride. I don't know, sadness in a way, maybe when you think about. I think looking at some of the buildings where you've got some of the numbers, it's not directly with the Lanc itself,
but Bomber Command.
But Bomber Command, the losses, and which we'll know that look at. It was overwhelming, actually. In many, I don't think I could put one emotion to it, but it was incredible.
And the sound, the noise of the 4 millions?
Immense.
Yeah.
I remember when I went in the one at the BBMF a long time ago, and you climb into this aircraft, and what crossed my mind is that was something, the last thing some people did, is they climbed into this aircraft, stuck themselves down a turret, and that was it. They were never seen again. And the poignancy of that was just to be able to come and see that.
We have a sign at our gate. Obviously, RAF East Kirkby flew 2 squadrons during wartime, so there's 57 and 630 Squadron here. They lost 848 men flying Lancasters. So we have a little sign at the gate that says when you cross the threshold of this property, you're walking in the footsteps of one of the bravest men and women this country has ever seen and will ever see. I think that it's the last piece of Britain that a lot of people touched.
So there's Andrew Panton, and you really must listen to his full interview in our full Flaps edition, which will be available soon. It may be there right now. But Roy and Jez, I know you went on this fantastic trip a couple of years ago where we've all been in the Just Jane now when it's taxied, but not necessarily under power.
It was moved
by a tractor. But these two have been in it under power.
Were you more excited when it got moved by the tractor? Or
No, I was concerned because you were in control.
Yes,
James Brakeman.
James is on the brake
pilot seat.
Yeah.
And we have all that also in the full Flaps.
Yeah, we do.
We've got that full interview with Andrew. A week later, we've got the full tour of the Lanc with Andrew and us being like excited schoolboys inside the Lancaster.
Twice. It was no less exciting, even though we didn't taxi it on our
it was to have Andrew there to explain.
And we really had it to ourselves for an hour or so, didn't we?
It was
we were very
amazing.
lucky.
Weren't we just?
But I would urge anybody, any aviation enthusiast, if you've not been to the Lincolnshire Aviation Museum, it's a great place. Go on the taxi run, the VIP taxi run. They treat you amazing. You get lunch, you get the tour of the aircraft, and then you get the taxi ride. And I know it's just explained that in what it is. But it was honestly one of the best days.
But there's so much else to see there as well.
Yeah.
There's what's going on in the hangar with the restoration of the Mosquito, the control tower, sort of in its original state there. I mean, that was a fully operational RAF bomber airfield in the Second World War. And there's so much of that there to see. Even if you don't get to go on the Lancaster for the taxi run, I'd still go.
They're currently running. Taxi runs, and you can just turn up. I think it's £5 to get in, and kids are free. Like in the first half of the summer, that's happening.
What, to get on board?
No, not to get on board,
To
but
watch
just to
it.
watch the to watch it.
And that in
But you
itself
get-
is thrilling.
Totally, and you get the full run of the museum as well.
And
which is-
you can easily spend a day there.
Totally,
And if
yeah.
you feel that you can't spend a whole day there, there's so many other places to go and see in Lincolnshire.
That's
I'm a
true.
big Lynx fan.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a Lincolnshire Mark II visit.
yeah,
isn't there?
definitely.
Oh,
Definitely. We had
definitely.
the best time there. That
But-
weekend was so fun.
Roy, you mentioned to Andrew the Rivet Club,
Yeah.
which you're a member of. What's that?
So I remember the Rivet Club. It's a couple of quid a month, and it essentially gets you behind the scenes. You get a hangar cam, so you can look at the hangar whenever you like. You get a weekly report of what's happening with the maintenance, and the most exciting thing, which I didn't realise when we first went, was that they're going to make Just Jane fly. There's a 10-year plan, and they're 3 years into it.
Yeah.
And if you're in the Rivet Club, you're helping make that happen, and hopefully going to be one of the first to get, because they're thinking about doing flights. They're thinking of taking,
As the Canadian
Yeah.
one does at the Canadian Warplane.
that's
Yeah.
his dream, and it was really.
I think it's more than a
inspiring.
dream. I think that will happen.
I totally. But I would say it's like.
I mean, the
Andrew's dream
CAA are on
since
board
he
and
was
everything,
a
aren't they?
kid. You know,
Yeah,
since
yeah.
he says the story about how he used to ride round as
Yes.
a kid on his bike.
And what's great about that whole Panton story is it's crossed generations. You know, it started with a family tragedy, and has gone through grandfathers,
Yeah, it was the grandfather
fathers,
who
and
was
now the son
in a Halifax,
Andrew.
wasn't he? Who
Yeah.
got shot down, and
Yeah,
this is all in his memory.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
the whole thing was set up
It's
for. wasn't it?
absolutely, it's amazing. It's a brilliant story. Andrew's a brilliant talker. Actually.
Yeah, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was a fascinating interviewer.
And yeah, we're not sponsored by anyone, but if you get the chance to go there, this is
Yeah.
a plug for that place.
Yeah. And the Rivet
Yes.
Club as well. To see. I know I send you all the mails every time it comes through, but it is quite nice to go in and have a look at the hangar. And when we were just looking at that Sea Fury, which was upside down with the engine the other side of the field.
Yeah.
Frequently, you go on the hangar cam, and like the Lancaster's in 8 different bits.
Yes.
and you're like, how is this going to get put back together? You know, there's an engine over there, and where's the tail? And like, it's just
At least that was planned.
yeah.
But it's incredible how it all comes
Yeah.
apart like
Yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
of Meccano,
It
and it
is.
comes back together.
It's slightly concerning. in fact.
But-
The other confession I was when we went into the hangar. There's the Mosquito. We were chatting to the guy who owns it, Tony Agar, and we sort of saying, "Can we have a look?" And he went, "Yeah, you can." And I was I was gone. I was sitting in that pilot seat
okay.
before he had finished
Fat rat
saying
up a small
yes.
drain pipe.
Again, second time he's in the seat
Yes, exactly.
within about 3 hours.
Yeah,
Knee,
I
knee, knee,
tried,
knee,
but
knee.
my knees are so bad I couldn't get to the top of the ladder.
I was determined to my back injury. I was determined to get
You
in.
were
So
stuck in the Bombay. We saw you.
They do, and also they do a mosquito experience as well, which is more expensive for the taxi run. But again, chance for a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's such a. Oh my god! It's if you are an aviation fan, obviously must be if you've listened to this far,
Yes, that's true.
and you've never been. Like, go for a weekend to Lincoln because there is so much. Go for a week. You could
Yeah,
easily
you need
do a week,
You need a week.
and you could have. We had such a great time.
when Roy asked me the first time about when we went with the band, as a proper hanger on there, I'm embarrassed to confess that I didn't know about the Lincolnshire Aviation Museum, although I had read about Just Jane years ago in a Farmer's Weekly because they did an interview with Panton.
Sounds like a tracker.
And I'd remembered about this. And anyway, but that's irrelevant. But it was just brilliant, and it was super. Looking back, I was so excited when you asked me.
Yeah.
I can remember exactly where I was when you asked me.
We had no idea about it either. It was just because we do a lot of shows in Lincoln. We have a really big fan base there. And there was always a sign that said Lincolnshire Aviation Museum. And eventually
let's be correct. It's the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre.
It basically had the propeller sign on a brown sign. And we went past it every time. I was like, I've got to go there. And for years, like literally years, it was like, have we got a chance to go? No, we've got a gig in Bath the next day. We never got a chance. And And suddenly, and then I tried to book the taxi run. I tried to book it probably 4 years before we actually did it, and they sell out so quickly. And it took, because we did it for Greg, our bass player's 40th birthday.
Who hates airplanes?
To be honest,
This has nothing to do with Greg.
he's not really into planes that much.
that's fun.
But yeah, and we put it all through the band account. It was a team building exercise.
I hope Sony are listening.
Yeah, and, yeah, we had. Yeah, it's I you know, like it gets a bit boring how much I've gone on about this. But
Do you know what I really want to see happening, mate? Because I've had this image in my mind since we first went there with the band. Is night time, the Lancaster on the apron, backlit,
Yeah.
and you doing a gig.
oh yeah.
Oh,
Do you know? I think we could probably make that happen.
That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
That could be
That would
amazing.
be
Yeah.
an amazing gig.
Could I be the
come
master
on.
of ceremonies, please?
We could maybe the taxi ride comes in. We get off the Lanc.
Oh yeah,
Oh no, the band get
through
off
the
Lanc.
Bombay.
This is becoming an Ultravox video if you're not careful, isn't it?
Right, so you know what time it is now, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Time?
Not quite. It's time for the top landing gear quiz.
I thought we were bidding that for this series.
No, it's been very much requested by at least one person on Twitter, me. Okay, so it's going to be all about the Lancaster. First things first, we need to hear buzzers.
Yep.
Have you remembered to bring your buzzers with you?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, James, what have you got?
I have got this, which I recorded at East Kirkby.
You look so pleased with yourself. That is glorious.
The sound of engine number 3 of a
Engine number 3 does the hydraulics. We know that.
starting
don't
up. Yeah, there you go.
we? Well done. Well, all right, Jez, what have you got?
Got any drinks, Carling Black Label? Your best bet for a fuller flavour.
Well done. Well done, Jez. Imaginative.
Do you even remember that?
Music.
Right.
I do.
Goalkeeper.
It's the Carling Black Label advert.
Dam Busters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so
Anything going?
this is a conversation we were having about the Lancaster.
And Jez asked him the question, how much longer can these things fly? And he said, in perpetuity. What's the word? In perpetuity.
Yeah. So that's my buzzer there. We'll get to that next episode.
Oh, dear.
Oh, I'm glad that's come to light.
There was wine involved, wasn't there?
There was quite a lot of wine involved.
That's from our interview with Emma Brewery, who runs the Petwood Hotel.
So is that really your buzzer? Right.
That's well,
buzzer
no,
is me.
my buzzer was the startup of the Lancaster, but James has stolen that. But
Sorry.
yes, my buzzer is you.
It's going to be very I'm honoured. It's going to be really difficult to hear who's who. But okay, here we go. Good luck, everybody. Question number 1. As Jez told us in his quick facts, most Lancasters were powered by Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. But due to concerns during the war that there may be a shortage of Merlins, what other engine were some Lancasters powered by?
Got any drinks, Carling Black Label?
Yes, Jez.
Was it the Griffin?
No, it was not the Griffin. That came along a little bit later. Nice try. And there is the Rolls-Royce Merlin on a Lancaster, James.
I believe there was something from the Ford factory in America. It was a Ford engine.
Oh, you're thinking of the Packard, are you?
Am I? Yes. The
Packard Merlin?
Yes.
Nice one. Wrong. Roy.
No, I don't know.
No, well, it's quite something very, very different from a Merlin. It's a Bristol Hercules radial engine. The sort of thing that were used on the Beaufighter, the Hastings, and indeed, James, the Bristol Freighter. Which your dad used to fly.
Dad used to fly.
Yeah, so it's the Bristol Hercules. So, well done. Great start to the Lancaster quiz. No points. No point. Question number 2. What was H.A. Sam Smith's generally unheralded claim to fame in the Lancaster story?
H.A.
H.A. Sam Smith.
The
Nickname Sam.
Lancaster stories.
And Jez asked him the question, how much longer can these things fly? And he said, in perpetuity. What's the word?
Yes, right.
Was he the test pilot?
He was the test pilot. Well done. First test pilot ever flew BT-308, which you mentioned, from Ringway, Manchester, 9th of January 1941. Roy takes the lead.
Wow.
Well done, Roy.
Roy can answer all the questions as far as I can say with that buzzer.
Question number 3. What was unusual about the prototype that differed from the production model?
Hendrix calling Black Label.
Yes, Jez.
Like the Manchester, it had a tri-finned tailplane.
It did indeed. Well done. Still had the 3-fin tail. Eventually went, of course, just to the 2. Question number 4. The Lancaster was retired from RAF service on the 15th of October 1956. Which role was it employed in at the time, and where did it make its final operational flight from? James Cartner.
It was maritime.
It was indeed maritime.
Now, I'm going to say possibly Northern Ireland, Strangford or something.
Kelly.
Ballykelly.
Ballykissangel. Ballykelly.
Ballykelly.
Bit close to home.
Newquay.
RAF St Morgan.
St Morgan.
Correct. James, well done. Absolutely right. I thought you might have gone Malaya.
I'm gone below this.
No, you didn't go Malaya. Well done. It was indeed Maritime Reconnaissance, School of Maritime Reconnaissance, in fact, at RAF St Morgan. Now, NX611 Just Jane is being restored to flight, as we know, by the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre at East Kirkby. But who was Jane?
Hendrix calling.
Yes, Jimbo.
No, I can't remember her surname. Is
Oh,
that
well, that
important?
doesn't really work, does it?
Jane.
She was an actress that I believe you interviewed. You interviewed her during the 50th anniversary of the D-Day landing.
Shame. He doesn't get a point for this. He just listened to that.
It was on the end of it.
Yeah.
Called Jane somebody, and she was a very famous actress of the time.
Yeah.
And she appeared in different coloured dresses, normally a bikini.
Yeah.
And not in the dress that she appeared in on the side of Just Jane normally. But I can't remember her surname.
On
Well
the
done.
starboard side.
You're absolutely right. It is in Andrew Panton's interview. He tells a lovely story about her actually coming to visit the site. Jane actually was a cartoon strip in the Daily Mirror during the Second World War, modelled by Christabel Leighton Porter,
That was
who,
her,
as you correctly say, was a lovely lady I interviewed.
sure that's
You giving
really
her a point for
Each
that?
day later. I'm giving a point. Yeah. Well, you've all heard the interview. You were all
and we all
in the
knew all
interview.
those things.
You asked the question. He
Let's
didn't,
go there first. It's called a quiz.
but he didn't answer the question.
Come on, man. Well,
Who was
okay.
just Jane? Somebody Rob interviewed.
I'll bear in mind that I've given him a little bit of
Jealousy.
all right.
Jealousy is a sad
Next question.
emotion.
The Lancaster's lineage can be traced from the development of the Manchester in 1939 right the way through to 1991, a period of 52 years, when which aircraft was finally withdrawn from RAF service? James Cartner.
The Shackleton.
Correct. Well done, Jim. Do you know which mark of Shackleton? Actually, the
9.
final one? I might have to take a point away.
No, it's a German. I don't know. 9. I don't know. 9.
It was the AEW2. It was the thing that, because it was meant to be a Nimrod, wasn't it, by then, but it never happened. But the Shackleton ploughed on, absolutely amazing, retired from RAF Lossiemouth. It was with 8 Squadron, wasn't it? They flew with 8 Squadron, which is, wasn't it actually a fighter squadron, 8 Squadron?
Probably
Was it
most of the early numbers were.
No, there I see. So James has taken a bit of a lead here, boys. A bit of catching up needed to be done. The Lancaster was developed after the war as a civilian airliner called the Lancastrian. Yes, James.
Lancastrian.
Point away for being cheeky. James is back on 2. You now cannot answer the question.
He's on
Take
one.
your point away.
In March 1946, an Avro Lancastrian made history by doing what?
And Jez asked him the question, how much longer can these things fly? And he said, in perpetuity. What's the word? In perpetuity. In perpetuity.
The wheezing.
In perpetuity. I mean, the middle syllables.
I've got another 53 seconds.
In
The Americans
perpetuity.
don't bother. Why should you, Rob?
And that was Emma Brealey. You could hear that. Our guest in a future episode. Right, any idea of the answer?
I think it flew out of Heathrow.
Oh, that's
something like
brilliant. You're spot on. It was the first commercial flight out of London Airport, now known as Heathrow. Absolutely brilliant. Do you know where it was going?
It was going to America.
It was Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Took 35 hours.
Yeah.
Well, South America.
That's a long flight, isn't it?
I'm very
Non-stop.
impressed.
It wouldn't be non-stop, would it? No.
Okay, so Roy
I
on
must lose a
to
point there for just even like
It's a shame that you mentioned that.
Roy on 2, James on 2, Jez on 1. we could try this as a potential deciding question. James, you're back in now.
Thank you.
After being disqualified from that previous question. What mascot was carried on RAF bombers? Just Jane had a replica one, if you were
Jez asked
observant.
the question, how much longer can these
Yes.
things
Yes,
fly?
Roy.
He said, in perpetuity.
Just at the buzzer.
What's the word?
A pigeon.
A pigeon is correct. Do you know why?
In case they crashed. So
Yes.
It was a carrier pigeon.
It was a
So
carrier
was
pigeon.
A message.
Yeah.
Send a message back,
Absolutely
yeah.
right.
Was that
Roy.
a mascot?
No, I didn't think so
I
either.
think
Yeah,
mascot
that-
is.
that
I
was
think
a- that was
as
a
question.
misleading
I think
question.
you should lose a point yourself for that.
No, but I think sometimes they were mascots.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Definitely
Anyway.
the ones relating to my question.
Okay, all right, mate.
Well, look.
To be honest with you, I don't care who wins as long as it's not James.
Okay.
All right. Well, quite honestly, Roy, in that case, is leading. I can ask one more question.
Let's have it.
Okay,
As long as he
let's
can't
have
be
it.
caught by James.
All right. Okay.
Hang on, I've lost my buzzer. I've deleted my buzzer.
Doesn't matter.
Well,
It wasn't easy.
that could be a point away
That's a shame. I'll go
for incompetence,
I'll
which puts you on zero.
go, I'll find an earlier buzzer. Okay, here we go.
All right. Ready?
It's a buzzer.
I've deleted it.
So we've talked about the Lancastrian. There was another development of the Lancaster which was designed purely as a transport version. Of the few that were built during the war, it was far more widespread development afterwards. The type was used on top secret missions ferrying high-ranking dignitaries, including Churchill and numerous Allied commanders from North to Algiers on one particular mission in May 1943. It also flew King George VI on his tour of the British forces in North Africa and the Mediterranean. Do you know what this aircraft was? It was a development of the Lancaster. It looked very like a Lancaster. Had a shoulder wing. Actually had the three tails. In fact, went back to the triple tail thing.
Jez asked him the question.
Yes, right?
Lincoln.
Not a Lincoln. I like where you're going with that, but not the
Lincoln
Lincoln.
did look very
it
similar.
was a development of the Lancaster for sure.
Is it named after a city?
It was named after a city.
Guildford.
The Guildford.
The Avro Guildford. There needs to be an Avro. Yes, James.
The
Yes,
Avro
the Avro.
Winchester.
Afraid not, Jim. Jez, name a city in England.
Preceded by
Cardiff.
Says the rugby fan.
In England. Okay.
Oh, you get another go, do you?
Well, that was in Wales. If it
As
Was that humour?
it was a joke.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for using
The Avro,
Historic, very historic city. Yep.
I can't think of any. Birmingham.
It was the Avro York.
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 Yeah,
yes.
it's a rather
The
wonderful
old
aircraft.
Yorkie.
I think they were used widely in
Yeah.
the Berlin Air, weren't they?
They were.
Churchill, quite interesting researching this, Churchill made at least 25 trips outside Britain during the war.
Did they?
Yep, some ranging over several continents and lasting
That
for
was
weeks.
quite brave, I would imagine.
Incredibly brave, more than any other leader. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Lancaster quiz. Let's look at the final scores on the Bombay doors.
Let's do that.
In third place with one, Jez,
Still
who
one.
did all the research on the Lancaster. In second place with two is Jimbo.
Should have had
But
three.
our winner, the first quiz of season 3, it's Roy Stride with 3. Well done, Roy.
Well, right.
Thank you very
Wait,
much.
can you say I got a point deducted just for trying to answer earlier?
Well, you got a point for a very badly answered question. I was quite generous, and then something went wrong. We just can't let you win all the time. That's the
fair
thing,
enough.
Jim. You do
That's fair
understand.
enough. Good to see Roy win one for, especially with that buzzer. That was a cracking buzzer.
That buzzer
Can we hear it again,
deserved-
do you think? Just to make sure that it still works.
I think
haven't
we
deleted it or
could
anything.
possibly, I don't know, like,
How
oh,
much
yeah.
longer can these things fly? And he said, in perpetuity. What's the word? In perpetuity. In perpetuity. In perpetuity.
the word wine.
The middle syllables are often necessary. In
The Americans
perpetuity.
don't bother. Why should you, Rob?
Quite right. And he said, I just go in perpetuity. And he said, in perpetuity.
Yay! When you start laughing again.
It's gold. It's gold.
There we go.
Good buzzer. Best buzzer.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, look, chaps, well done. It's so lovely to be back with you all doing a podcast. And there we are. We got to the end of our first podcast of season 3, all about the Lancaster. And coming up on future pods, more from our trip to Lincolnshire, including a Dambusters special recorded at their base at RAF Scampton, our visit to the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight and the Typhoons at RAF Coningsby. And our next podcast will feature Emma Brealey, who you've heard a little bit of. She's from the Petwood Hotel, which became the officers' mess for 617 Squadron during World War II, and which is full of memorabilia and remains a focal point for RAF reunions to this day. Emma spoke to us over a wonderful dinner at the Petwood, and because of that, it does rather fall apart as the rest of us all became a bit emotional. So bear with us. And poor old Roy, I think, is still trying to edit it as we speak. In the meantime, you can, of course, still listen to all our podcasts from Series 1 and 2. You'll find us wherever you normally get your podcasts. And please do get in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at Top Landing Gear. And do email us your questions for Ask James at info@toplandinggear.com. That's info@toplandinggear.com. 2 G's. And however you're listening to us, please recommend us to your friends and family, and do leave a review, but only if you've enjoyed it. In the meantime, thanks for listening. And bye for now. This is Top Landing Gear.